Hi everyone, welcome to After Class.
A podcast by two passionate adult ballerinas about all things adult ballet related.
And some random thoughts in between.
We're so glad you're here.
So grab your water bottle
or a cup of coffee
and join us for a quick chat after class.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of After Class. Today, we're going to be talking all about pointe shoes, and we're going to be sharing with you guys how each of us prepares our shoes, what we wear in them, how we sew them. I always enjoy hearing how other people do their shoes, so we thought it'd be fun to tell you guys how we prepare ours because we do it pretty differently. So let's get into it.
Hello everyone. You're going to be a little bit unimpressed with what I do with my pointe shoes. I'm very old school and super basic.
See, but I think that's going to be entertaining because you have the different experience from me. I started pointe briefly when I was younger, but really I didn't start doing pointe until I was an adult. But you have like the opposite experience of doing it as a child. So you have the tough feet.
Right, I do. So today we're going to be telling you what do we do when we first get our pointe shoes, how do we sew them. We're going to even talk about the different little details of like, what do you do with the elastic band? What do you do with your ribbon, the type of ribbons that you use? And you will see how me and Hannah, we are like almost totally different on everything. And then we're going to tell you what we actually put inside, like on our toes or inside the shoe. Believe it or not, I do know today the type of pointe shoes that I wear. Because years ago, I would not be able to tell you. I would just be given whatever it was at the school and I would put it on and had no idea. But this time, because now I'm a sophisticated lady and I live in Australia in a first world country, and I could actually go and get a fitting, pointe shoes fitting for first time.
Which maybe quickly we should back it up just in case anyone listening hasn't listened to that episode where you talk about Cuban National Ballet School and about how since you grew up living in Cuba, training in Cuba, how you didn't ever get to have a fitting, and like tell them kind of about your pointe shoe background.
Yeah, well, if you want to hear the entire story, just go back to that episode. But a sum up is we were called by groups and we were called like, okay, today you have your pointe shoe fitting. It wasn't a pointe shoe fitting. It was just, what is your normal street shoes number? 37. That's it. Perfect. Wear this. Now this a little bit too tight. Okay, what about this? A little bit too big. Okay, what about this one? That's a perfect. That's it. There is not a how you feel. Do they support it? You are all so spoiled nowadays.
Yeah, that was mind-blowing to me about just learning about your experience as a pre-professional and professional, is that you didn't really get fitted. It was just kind of whatever they had, and you would just have to make it work. So, yeah, very different from probably most of the people who listen to this podcast. I think most of our audience is adult dancers who hopefully have had a fitting. And if you're in the US or Europe or Australia, you know, there's dance stores you go to and there's all these different models and all these different types you can try on. And you did not have that experience. So I think that's a interesting difference right from the get-go.
Definitely. And quick, I do remember now that the two brands that were like, oh my God, this is fashion. It was Sansha, which I think is a Chinese brand, if I'm not wrong. And the other one was Dance Girl. I remember just that. It was just that. But I do know now that we used to receive everything by donations. So countries will donate a certain amount of pointe shoes and they will divide it between all the students around the entire country. They all belong to the government. All the ballet schools in Cuba belong to the government, and all of them work from like a little branches of the National Ballet School until you have the right age to get there. But I know that the shoes were only Sancha and Dance Girl.
Yeah, what a trip. That's just so different from what most of us have experienced. So, but that kind of makes sense of what you were saying at the beginning for someone who didn't know. That's why you're like, I know what I wear and I have a brand. And so what do you wear and what is the brand and the name of the model that you wear?
Yeah, so I do remember without reading the description, which I'm going to do as well, so everyone has a better understanding of what I'm wearing. I'm wearing the Energetics Melody pointe shoes, and they are gorgeous. So they have a V cut and they do not have the drawstring. So it makes it look like really cute when you put on the shoe. And that V cut, in my opinion, makes the foot to look longer and the line.
Yeah.
It is great. And One great step is not having that drawstring. Like that sometimes gets a little bit bulky or just uncomfortable. You have to fit it inside the shoe with all the things that we put inside on our toes. So that's awesome. So moving on from what do I do when I open my shoes, typically I will never ever like bend the shank, or I will not like, maybe the most I would do is squeeze the box of the shoe a little bit just so I get that softened, but I will never ever bend my shank. And something that I didn't notice, I was probably told, but I didn't notice, is that it already have the shank pre-arched, which now it makes sense why they are so cute. They are really nice. And something that I noticed the other day, I have been wearing them for a while, and something I noticed is in the inside, it already has a little cushion, like as soon
Yeah,
as
at
you
the
step
tip of the
on.
toe, it has like a
Oh,
little bit
yeah,
of
it's
padding.
built in. Moving on from there, if we said, what do I do next? So first I take them straight out of the package. I do not do anything to my shoe. I like my shoe to be hard because I don't know if you've seen me on the ballet classes on YouTube, but I have a good arch and a very strong feet. So sometimes I tend to break the shoes really quick. Yeah, so I like to do it naturally. I don't like to do it with my hands, otherwise it doesn't get the same arch that I have on my foot. But when I start sewing them, the first thing that I do is my elastic band is a loop. I don't like the crisscross. Someone likes them, I don't. The less I have between the shoe and my foot, the better. So I put it right on the back, and then it's just the ribbons. Now my ribbons, because Claudia Dean is Australian. Apparently, she made these ones. You can see how they're stretchy. She made those popular, and they said to me like, "Oh, would you like to have the typical normal satin ones, or would you like to have the stretchy ones?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm getting the fancy ones that stretch, and they're really nice."
They're so nice. I remember
They're
when I
light.
very first started doing Pointe when I was, I think, 13, and I was only on very briefly before I kind of stopped doing ballet in that season. And I distinctly remember the satin ribbons and hating them. I hated them. I don't know what it was. Like, I just felt like I could never get the right amount of tightness or
Yeah.
looseness, because difference between when your foot is flexed versus when you're up on point. And I don't know, maybe it's different for everybody, but I felt like for me, it was really extreme, like the size change around my ankle from when I was on flat versus on point. And so I just could never figure out the tightness for satin ribbons. And so and the elastic ones weren't really a thing back then.
No,
Because that was,
not
like,
at all.
over 20 years ago, and that was not an option, and then when I came back to ballet as an adult and I saw stretch ribbon, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the best thing that has happened."
I feel the same.
Yeah.
I was like a child. I was like, "Mom, can I get them, please?"
Yeah.
That's the good thing about having your own money, not having to ask
Yeah.
anyone. You're like, "I'm getting those. I don't care. I don't even know
Yeah.
if the price is too different, but I was getting them."
They're infinitely more comfortable, in my opinion. It, like, boggles my mind when I see people wearing satin ribbons. I'm like, you don't have to be uncomfortable like that, right? No offense if you're someone who likes stretch ribbons. Do you? I don't understand it, but do you?
So I think now we should move forward to how you get your point shoes ready before we start talking on about what we put inside our point shoes and our toes. So what about you?
Yes. I wear Nicolets, which I love. They are, if you're listening to this in Europe, they are Grishkos, but Nicolet is the brand that is allowed to be sold into the US. I don't fully understand it. I just know that for whatever reason, Grishko is not sold in the US. They're sold under their other name, which is Nicolay. So I wear Nicolay 3000s. I love them. They are actually the first shoe that I was fit in when I first came back to Point as an adult. I know a lot of people say like, "Oh, you might get fitted in one model and then kind of as you dance, the shape of your foot changes, your needs might change, you might want to try a different model." And I feel like my fitter just nailed it, like, right out the gate. She has a ton of experience. She's actually the same person that fit me when I was 13 that fit me when I came back at, I think, 33 or
That's so
34.
cute.
And so it's really cool because she literally fit me 20 years apart from my two fittings. We have one dance store where I live, and she's been a fitter there the whole time, and she is fantastic, and she just like nailed it. So I love my shoes. I don't do a lot to change them. I flatten the box a little bit. I have very narrow feet, so I've found that what works for me is to buy a more narrow width and then flatten the box, because if I were to get the width that fits me without flattening the box, once I flattened it so that it actually was flush with the top of my foot, they would be too wide, if that makes sense. So like I have to go down even one more size in narrowness to accommodate for the fact that I'm going to flatten the box out a little bit. So I do that. I usually do that more with my hands than I know a lot of people step on the box, but I find that that can crush it too much. So I do it with my hand. I lightly bend the shank. Mine don't come pre-arched like Elena's do. So I just bend them a little bit. I don't like to break them in too much because like you, I like to let my feet do that. And I have learned by mistake that if you overbend them when you first get them, they die faster, or at least they did for me. So I don't do as much bending. And then I unfortunately do have a drawstring. I'm super jealous that your shoes don't have a drawstring, because I agree. I feel like the drawstring and having to tuck it, because I double knot my drawstring after I kind of find, the comfortable tightness. I double knot it, cut it, and leave, like a inch and a half of the string, and then tuck it into the inside of my shoe. And for the most part, they stay tucked, but like sometimes they don't. And I'm like, why? Like, I don't feel, to me at least, like the value that you get from being able to tighten the drawstring compensates for having to have the little strings flapping around. Like,
Yeah, like, and I don't know how they did it with these ones, but seriously, I don't notice that I don't have it.
yeah, I don't feel like the drawstring really has any value, because really the elastics are what hold your shoe on. Like, and so what is the drawstring really doing for us? I don't know. But yeah, so you sew your elastics in a loop. I wish I could sew my elastics in a loop. When I first got my shoes, I tried a loop, and they do not keep the heel up for me enough. So I have to do crisscross, which I also hate doing crisscross because it's more sewing, because rather than having to sew 2 points of contact, it's 4 points of contact. And so it sucks because you're sewing like doubles on your elastics. I so wish. I even like not too long ago, I tried again to do a loop, like just to see if maybe something about the way I worked in my shoes had changed to where I could get away with the loop. Nope, can't do it. So have to do crisscross. Yep, not happening. So I have to do crisscross, and then obviously I 100% am with you with the elastic ribbon. I do elastic ribbon, not satin ribbon.
Yeah, it's a question here because I just realized how thick or thin are your elastics? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, mine are probably, similar to yours, which are what, maybe like an inch, maybe a little less. I can't do the invisible or the covert elastics, the ones that are almost kind of see-through. I tried
Yeah.
those, and they just don't have enough resistance for me personally, again, to, like, keep my heel on. Like, that was another trial and error thing, kind of like the loop for me, where, like, I tried the covert because I just love anything that can make it look cleaner, and, like, there's less fabric happening around the ankle. I'm like, "That's what I want." And so I was like, "Oh, covert elastics, I should try those. They look so nice." They did not keep my pointe shoe on my foot enough, so I can't do it, but I'm jealous of everyone else who can.
Okay, so that's it. That's how we get ready the point shoes. What do we do? Now, what do we put inside the point shoes on our toes? And I'm gonna show you what I put on my point shoes. A toe pad, and now I'm putting the toes spacers at this.
Yes. Yeah, toe spacers.
And you introduced me to the toe spacers. You were
Life-changing.
talking, yeah, you were talking about it, and I have obviously like every ballerina who doesn't have bunions that they just hurt from going up and down relevant. And I remember you were talking about the toe spaces. I'm like, yeah, well, when I do my point fitting, I'm going to see if I can get them, and they are definitely, definitely life changing. They are for sure, and I love them. And there is no one point class, even if I'm just teaching and I'm not dancing, I will always put them on And I only put them on the big toe. Like I don't have them for all of my toes, which there is such thin. You can get them all spaced. They are
Yeah,
very
different
thin.
sizes.
Yeah, they're very thin or a little bit thicker or whatever. These ones are just, if I'm not wrong, only for the big toe. I love them. And the other thing is, what did you call this one? You call this one a fabric?
I'm like, I won't even call this a toe pad. You guys, if you're listening to this, you can't see what she's holding up, but it's like a piece of fabric. I'm like, that is not a toe pad. That is a toe sleeve. Yeah, it has nothing. So again, going back for training of, growing up in Cuba at their dance academy. And yeah, you have some tough feet that is your idea of padding.
For so many years, I remember that my toe pads were either half of a socks that we would cut just so we didn't have too much, because we couldn't have too much bulkiness inside the shoe because that makes your toes just to get numb. So it was finding the balance between being thick enough to protect you and thin enough so you didn't get all your toes numb and to
Smushed.
hide in the shoe. Exactly. So basically, I remember wearing thighs. So I would get my ballet thighs, the broken ones, and we would cut like the toes or something like that, and we would just put the toe and wrap once around, and that's it. But I remember our teachers recommending to put a newspapers. You would get a one sheet of the newspaper, and you would just like wrap it around your toes, put it on, and that's it. It's not topaz. I never had those in Cuba ever. This is fancy. I remember the first time, actually, none of you might remember if you are young enough, the ones that they were just like a rubber and there were many colors and they were thick. I couldn't put it on. Like, I was just like, no, this is not for me. I just can't deal with this. So I went back to my thighs until I found this. These are from Energetics as well.
Yeah, and those are very thin, but still definitely a come up from newspaper or tights.
Definitely. What about you, Hannah?
So I also use toe spacers. I use one between if you're not familiar with what they are, like she said, we'll link things, but I put a toe spacer between my big toe and my second toe, like you do. And they are incredible. I think I told you this, I have started wearing toe spacers even in my slippers. So even in just normal class when I'm not doing pointe, because I was starting to get bunion pain even just in my slippers and my soft shoes. And so I was like, well, I wear toe spacers for this problem in pointe shoes, so why not try it in canvas shoes? And it works great. And I mean, I recommend, honestly, even if you don't have bunion pain yet, I feel like in pointe shoes, you should probably just wear toe spacers because then you won't get bunions.
It keeps the natural alignment of the toe.
Yeah, it keeps your toes straight instead of like smushed together and bent. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not here giving medical advice, but you'll save yourself some pain. So I wear a toe spacer on or between my first and second toe. I put a little bit of lamb's wool at the tip of my box. I have what's called, I think they call it a Greek toe, where my second toe is actually slightly longer than my first toe. And I found that putting a little layer of lamb's wool at the bottom really helps with the pain of that, with like more of my weight being on my second toe.
Yeah.
So I do that. And then I use toe pads that are I think they're called cozy toes, and they are a thin layer of gel, but then they have fabric over the gel. And I love those because I think we've talked about this in a past episode, but if we haven't, here we go. I have very sweaty feet. This is probably gross, but whatever. We're all friends here. When I wear my canvas ballet slippers in like an hour and a half technique class, I will get sweat stains on my canvas slippers. So like I'm a sweaty person and it is what it is. So if you're a sweaty person too, I see you. It's all good. They're with you.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, welcome to the club. So I like my toe pads, which again, I think are called cozy toes because they have that layer of fabric. I cannot just wear like rubber or gel toe pads with nothing, because some of them are just gel. I've seen toe pads that are just gel and they don't have any fabric over them. And I'm like, my feet are way too sweaty for that.
Yeah.
I need some sort of fabric to absorb sweat. And so I love the cozy toes. I feel like they're a really good thickness. So that is what's in mine. And I think the only other thing I do sometimes is I'll put a little gel sleeve on my fourth toe because sometimes my pinky toe rubs against my fourth toe. So I put this little like gel sleeve over it so that way I'm not like getting that friction because I've gotten blisters before. Like my pinky toe rubbing on my second toe is giving me a blister. So they make these really cool little gel sleeves. We'll link all of the things we're talking about. So if any of you guys have similar feet experiences, maybe some of these things will help you. But what do you do to the outside of your shoes once you're wearing them? Do you do anything to them, like with rosin or anything like that?
Not really. I know that a lot of dancers are doing their own, I don't even know how to call it, their own
Darning?
darning. Yes, a lot of dancers do that, but I don't have that in my upbringing. Like, I never did that.
Yeah, same for me. I don't do darning primarily because that would mean more sewing, and I hate sewing enough as it is. So I'm like, there's no way in heck you're gonna catch me doing more sewing than the bare minimum.
Before we finish the episode and I keep forgetting, I got a tip from my student, which is so funny. Okay, let me ask you. When you finish with your point shoes, how do you pack your point shoes? Where do you point the toe spacer? Where do you put the toe pad?
So I, again, because I'm a sweaty person,
Yeah.
I take my toe pads out and I turn them inside out and I let them. I have like a bag that's net or like mesh kind of. Mine's like more of a net, and I put them in so that they can breathe. And then I actually put my toe spacers. I have like a baggie with, oh my gosh, what, like foot powder in with my spacers and my sleeve. And then sometimes I'll put a little bit of foot powder in my toe pads, but that's what I do. I don't know if that's normal or not.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly what you should be doing because funny enough, my entire life, I take the shoes off, I put the toe pads inside. Now I'm leaving the space, the toe spacer inside.
Oh,
And then
you
I
leave
do
everything in.
yeah, I used to leave everything inside and then putting one shoe inside the other one. I would just do all this and that's it until the next session. And my students were telling me the other day, like, oh, I got a new tip. We just take everything out of the shoe. And first, it doesn't stink anymore or not as bad. And the shoe lasts longer in the inside because it's less humid inside. And you actually get to keep them separated and they're going to breathe and they're not all like smushy into each other. I was like, oh, wow, my entire life. There's everything all tied together in one little package, and I'm just walking around. That is so much true. Like the shoe just lasts way longer by doing that. And the toe pad get to breathe, exactly what you said. So keep that as a tip, everyone.
Yeah, you just let them breathe. But I actually have another tip too that I should have mentioned earlier, but if you buy the same brand of ribbons and elastic as your point shoes, it will be the best possible match. So, like, I know sometimes, if your point shoes are Nicolay, but you buy block ribbons, the pinks aren't going to be necessarily the same.
True.
So they look different colored, which doesn't give as much of like that seamless appearance. And so I realized, oh, Nicolay actually sells their own elastic and their own ribbon, and almost all point shoe brands, I don't know if all of them do, but most of them, from what I'd seen, sell their own ribbons and elastics. And that's like the best possible match for your shoe. Also, if you want to go one step further, one thing I realized shortly after that is the same for tights. If you buy the same brand of tights as your point shoes, so like Nicolay, I wear Nicolay shoes, they also make their own tights, and those are like the best possible match. So if you buy the same brand in your tights, your ribbons, and elastic as your point shoe, when they're on, you'll get the most seamless look. So that was something I figured out later, but it really helps for getting the most elegant look.
Yeah, getting the lines of the leg and the whole all the way to the point. Oh wow, I did it.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be like, duh, it makes sense. But I wouldn't even think because I got the energetics with the energetics elastic and the energetics ribbons. And if you look at it, it's exactly the same tone.
Yeah, it matches. Yeah. Yeah. And like the pink of your point shoes is different from the pink of my point shoes. So that's a hot tip for you. You may already be thinking, what the heck have you guys been doing with your life? But if you didn't know, then there you go.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
See you guys next week. Thank you so much for being here.
See ya. Thank you for listening to After Class.
Join the community on YouTube and Instagram, or come dance with us in our weekly Zoom classes for adult ballerinas like you.
Links included in the episode description. Special thank you to our sponsors.
See you next time after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.